And we're live. Starting. And welcome back to day one of Digital Transformation Summit organized by Internet and Mobile Association of India. Before starting off, I would like to quickly thank our partners, our title partner Accenture, our track partner Automation Anywhere, our cloud communication partner Route Mobile, and our bronze partner Tata Teleservices. With that, let us begin with our session. This session is a panel discussion on the topic creating technical infrastructure for sustainable digital transformation. And for the same, I would like to welcome our esteemed panelists. First, we have our moderator, Mr. Ratan, Kesh, EVP and Head Retail Operations and Service, Axis Bank, along with our other panelists, Mr. Akilur Rahman, Chief Technology Officer, Hitachi ABB Power Grids India, Mr. Ankeet Bhat, Chief Strategy Officer, MapmyIndia, Mr. Jagdish Narayanan, Chief Information Officer, Reliance Jio Payments Bank, and Mr. Prasad Dhumal, Vice President, IT, DHL Express India. We welcome all of you. Thank you so much for joining in today. I would now request Mr. Kesh to please take over. Thank you.
Thanks, Garima, and really honored to be part of this panel and also getting the opportunity to moderate the discussion. Uh, Technical infrastructure are super critical foundation to ensure sustainable digital transformation. There are fundamental elements which sort of differentiates between a traditional standalone information system vis-a-vis integrated infrastructure needed to power digital transformation. A digital infrastructure is an interconnection of different subsystems, including the software, the hardware, the standards, the internet, platforms, and of course humans. A digital infrastructure thus typically consists of technical and organizational components, the processes, and the networks. Presumably so, a social network of multiple players enable this digital infra. The users of the digital tools, the designers, the system developers connected to this infrastructure. Hello and welcome to this very interesting panel discussion. It is titled Creating Technical Infrastructure for Sustainable Digital Transformation. And we have got four very eminent panelists. Akilur is the CTO for Hitachi ABB. We've got Ankeet Bhat, Chief Strategy Officer for MapmyIndia, a pure play digital company. Jagdish Narayanan, CIO, Reliance Jio Payments Bank, again a very new age digital bank and a payments company. Prasad Dhumal, he is the Vice President IT, DHL, handling the entire logistics and the tech platform around it. Let me start getting into the conversation. So let's start by talking about really the creating infra for scalability and reliability. Digital infrastructure are becoming indispensable for sustainable operations in both public and private sectors. Few days back, I think the CoWIN app crashed due to huge traffic. While it is positive on one side because it shows that India has overcome the hesitation and the initial resistance towards the vaccine, however, it also points to a problem of scalability and reliability of the digital platforms. Let me start with Jagdish. At Reliance Jio Payments Bank, and of course in some of your previous role in banking and financial institution, you must have noticed how scalability and reliability can be critical factors for delivering superior CX. How do you create scale and be resilient to absorb the shocks in a digital world? Please share your input, Jagdish.
Thank you, Mr. Ratan, and thanks to IMAI for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this session. And hello, everybody. So, like rightly said, scalability and reliability are at the heart of delivering customer experience in almost every industry. And coming from a banking and financial services and payments industry, I dare say that perhaps this is one place where every person feels the need for it to be around like almost all the time, more than almost anything else. I mean, just in a normal day, uh, it is possible that uh, any person just gets a call, an SOS call from his near and dear ones, maybe late in the night, in the middle of the night, saying there is an emergency situation and that person needs money immediately. So can you please transfer 10,000 rupees into my account? That's perfectly normal. And at that instant of time, if that payment transaction were to fail and not go through successfully, that person isn't going to be happy at all, to say the very least. It doesn't matter that it was like at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. or whatever it is. It is just that situation and the need of that. And if that transaction didn't go through at that hour, the customer experience just goes down to a level that is immeasurably bad. So it is that level of thing. I mean, there are several other areas where you might still be, okay to say, okay, let me do it tomorrow morning. I mean, it's okay. No, it's not such a critical thing like, some sort of, maybe a purchase or something. Okay, I can still possibly live with it. But something like this can be, a very, very emergency situation. So uh, making sure that the availability, the reliability, and the scalability, like you rightly said, with the current pandemic and its its after and side effects. Uh, Obviously, one of the sidebar thing is that everything has gone far more digital, and the adoption of digital, the hesitancy towards adoption of digital has substantially gone down, and which means that there is a massive spike in the digital transactions, and that leads to needing the kind of scalable sort of, if I use the word elastic architecture, which can accommodate all these spikes in these transactions with the same level of response time, the same level of reliability, the same level of security and protection that a transaction would have had in the normal times. And that's a very, very basic given expectation for any customer. Otherwise, just to even keep the customer experience normal, and if not really, take it to a delight level. So scalability and reliability, at least in the industry that I come from, I have seen, and I'm very sure it is pretty much the same across all of the other industries as well, is the number one critical thing. And to create that infrastructure to support that, be it, like you rightly said, it's not just about a bunch of physical servers or boxes. It's about the entire architecture of the applications, the networks, and of course very much the processes and the people behind it as well, the customer service. All of these aspects need to be equally scalable. You cannot be having a situation where the customer calls up customer service for an emergency situation and he's put on wait for an eternal length of time, just because there's a high volume of load on the customer
Right.
service. Just can you create your own self-service bots, whatever. So that's the ask in today's world across all industries, to make it a scalable, reliable architecture, just to improve customer experience to any level.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. In fact, you're right. During this pandemic last year, April 2020, one of the things that we at Axis Bank decided to do is that we will continue 24/7 call center services. And for me to do that in a work from home scenario, I had to really create the capability to have calls being taken work from home with suitable endpoint security with video call recording, etc.
Correct.
I think those are the really backbone of really making it happen. Let's hear and really get a perspective from Prasad. Prasad, in logistics industry at DHL, I'm sure your requirements around tech infra for scalability, whether it is fiber versus copper versus mobile, and the learnings are very, very different. What has been your learning over the last 1 year plus in your space?
Thanks, Ratan. Good afternoon to all the panelists, and thanks to IMAI for the opportunity to talk on this forum. I think I agree with Jagdish. Last 12 months have been really a test for every industry in terms of reliability and scalability. Uh, Customer experience drives digital transformation. And for having a great customer experience, you need to have a great level of reliability and scalability. And I would have to admit that all the global organizations like us were caught, in a dilemma last year around April, May, when this thing suddenly happened. While I think everybody had the infrastructure, everybody had the BCP plans, but not to this scale. Just to give you a perspective, like globally, we have more than 500,000 employees. And we possibly had infrastructure in terms of connectivity and VPN, possibly only for about 20-25% of people to work from. But come April last year, we realized almost 50-60% people are working from home. And suddenly your VPN gateways fell short of capacity. The home networks were not so good. This is where we realized that a lot of employees at home do not have broadband connectivities, even if those people who had only had a copper, which was possibly only giving 10 Mbps of speed. So we realized these challenges limited us to provide best of the productivity and a great customer experience in the initial months, which was in the month of April and May. And we had to quickly ramp up not only globally but in India also in terms of talking to the service providers, getting the fiber and the Wi-Fi devices to our employees' home so that they can have a seamless connectivity. We had to scale up our infrastructure to make sure that first our employees get same level of experience as they get in office so that they can deliver the same level of experience to our customers outside. Because, you know, digital transformation depends upon PPT. We all love PPTs, but there's a different PPT. There's people, process, technology. It's people who create processes and implement processes, and technology digitally transforms them. So we realized technology was largely there, but it was the people and processes which were not geared up to a situation like work from home. So I think we had to quickly gear up, we had to quickly scale up our infrastructure, we had to quickly improve our reliability so that our employees who are working from home, be it in contact center or in clearance department or in credit or in commercial, they are able to reach customers, they are able to have good dialogue with customers, engage with customers, and provide them a great customer experience. And the scalability and reliability became an extremely important factor in that.
Right. A wonderful perspective. In fact, you are right. I mean, in our bank, for example, we had to move 500 plus technology systems to really VPN VDI mode. And prior to that,
Yeah,
we never thought that those will be needed to be moving into VPN VDI mode. Our concurrency on VPN and VDI went up from something like 500 to 10,000. And those are the scale that we need to handle.
absolutely.
Now,
Even for that matter, laptops also, as basic things
yep.
as laptop was a desktop.
Absolutely. Akilur, you are powering, thanks, Prasad. Akilur, you are powering the mega power grids. You know, the state central grids are virtually the nerve system in which we just cannot afford to have any failure. I mean, you talk about Six Sigma levels
Yeah.
to benchmark error free operation. I would presume you must be operating at 8, 10 Sigma. I mean, how do you really create infra for a real time data collection across such huge set of components for decision making and digitization? What kind of sort of infra that you have, or what do you
Yeah,
prefer?
thanks. So here I would just give you an sort of overview of has been evolving. The power systems, the power grid has been the most, I would say the early adapters of the automation software and digitalization. I would say that so although it looks very trivial, but behind this you have thousands of different type of sensors, thousands of different type of controllers, actuators in the field, distributed in a state, distributed in a country, and you are getting the data from all these sensors, actuators, controllers, and then the algorithms are running in the SCADA system, in the automation system, and it's a ideal, it's a perfect example of how human intelligence and machine intelligence they work together. So going back, how it has started, we started in 60s actually using the analog electronics for this, having the actuators, sensors, controllers, analog electronics, and then we moved in 80s, 90s to digital actually. And here, as Ratan, you said, it's more than Six Sigma, because what happens, our power systems, any event, anything happening, even thousandths of a second, we call it millisecond, thousandth of a second, in millisecond can create a cascaded failure of a grid. It can be a state, city or national grid. We have seen that happening. So that's why the
Yeah.
software has to be so robust, available, almost like 100%, and also deterministic. When we say deterministic, that you system is collecting the data from a large number of actuator sensors distributed across large geography, And let's say in 10 milliseconds, it has to get the data, the controller has to process the algorithm and then give command to the actuator automatically in another 20 millisecond, for example, and then whole cycle happens in 30, 40 millisecond. If it is becoming 50 millisecond, actually that can create a lot of problem. I mean, it can create tripping of some circuit, and then it will cascade into a blackout of a system. So I think here, one is having all these electronic sensors, controller actuators, very accurate, very robust. And at the same time, we have the automation, the software system, which is more like very tightly controlled with a lot of mathematical algorithms running. Then today, what we are doing is we are also extending that with IoT, basically putting more sensors on these electrical devices, machines. Sometimes they're also robot. For example, we have transformer, it's a mega size equipment. So we have a robot which, instead of taking out the transformer, normally when you do an inspection of a transformer, it takes 25 days to 30 days of time to really disassemble the transformer, take out the oil from it, and then do the inspection. So now we are, as Hitachi ABB Power Grids, we have developed a robot which goes inside the transformer without you disassembling it. So it dives inside the transformer and does all these inspection online, and you can monitor it, control it. I think what's very important is to embed this IoT on top of the automation, which is already there with a lot of algorithms. Use the IoT to have additional information about the system, about the asset, about health of the asset, do the predictive maintenance, and we use a lot of machine learning, artificial intelligence algorithm to really process this data. Because when we talk about millisecond, we don't have actually a human, it's not humanly possible to take the data, analyze and react. It has to be in the system. The system has to be self-learning, self-healing kind of system, and then provide the feedback to the system automatically to take some action. At the same time, there will be human element, human who are experts who are sort of monitoring this remotely or at the site, in the plant, to also learn and also apply additional measures to make the system available and at the same time make the system efficient. I think it's all about how we are evolving from analog to digital to have the sensors, a lot of different, thousands of different type of sensors collecting the data online, connecting them to the automation system, also taking the data to the cloud, doing the analytics by several stakeholders, and then providing the system the right, the actions to take. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I think brilliant perspective, because most often we think that the service companies, the companies like us who are operating more on a digital world, we've got lots of data. But it is very interesting to see how the manufacturing company or the large grids like you are using data, and I've been using it for years together, and how you are evolving this to use AI and some of the cloud infrastructure around it. Let me now jump into Ankit's perspective. Ankit, MapmyIndia is absolutely a fascinating company in the digital and the geo information space. You are powering businesses, and through businesses, you are actually powering public at large. Um, your map, data, location, AI are some of the critical infrastructure pillars, and I'm sure you are widely using by various industries in the digital transformation. What is your advice? What should the companies do, in your opinion, as part of their digital transformation strategy to build scalability and reliability to use your solutions? I mean, I know you are guiding them, but what should we do to use your solution effectively?
Thanks, Ratan, for the kind words. We've been trying hard. It's not an easy problem to map all of India and to create a whole digital replica of the country. But I guess we've been successful till date, and some of our technologies that are used by enterprises and developers, they touch about 400 million lives right now. So there is definitely incredible scale that we see on a daily basis, almost as we're talking right now. But the way we've kind of so there are multiple parts of data information that we deal with, and I think there are some announcements by us this year, last year, that even like multi-folded that data information access and also the digital infra that we had to deal with in the middle of the lockdown. And so one of the things is that in the middle of the lockdown, definitely we've completely gone cloud first. Like there is very little, almost nothing of infrastructure or digital information that we would have, in a physical, presence. So from storage of, information that comes in. So we have a lot of source information. So we announced a partnership with ISRO last year, where that was kind of the first private-public partnership, where we get access to a lot of, I would say it's not even terabytes. I think it's gone beyond that. It's into petas right now. But all that information essentially is all on the cloud. And it definitely, from an optimization perspective, that is definitely something that companies like us are kind of dealing with. That how do you deal with your costs? Because once you go full cloud first, you realize that, this the cost balloon up, and then all of us are responsible for P&Ls and stuff. So that definitely is like what you kind of go through the journey. But essentially, the first part is to take all that source information that we have. So we're getting a lot of information from satellites, car sensors on ground that are sending information about cars, phones. So our app, it's called MapmyIndia Move. It kind of competes with Google Maps, but does many more things. We've suddenly seen a spurt in usage. So we've gone up to over 20 million downloads in the last 2 years. So there's a lot of data coming from there too, about people, about movement, and from phones. So phones, vehicular sensors, and like satellites, like this kind of data, that source data that's coming in. The first thing that we had to deal with was the storage of that data. So how do you store it, and how do you manage your storage, and what do you store, what do you not store, how do you shelve that storage? So that itself was a very, I would say, a very daunting task. It wasn't easy because we don't have anyone to talk to. We're not like essentially talking to companies that are similar to us and saying, hey, what are you doing? We're essentially figuring it out as we are scaling. So we were able to use the power. I think we work very closely with AWS. So I would definitely give some credit to them. And we've also announced that how strong our partnership with them is, where one is on the storage front. So when all this input information comes in, how do we store it? And like I mentioned, the processes of what do you store, how do you shelve, how do you archive, that bit. The second is how do you compute all of that? So we use a lot of compute storage services on AWS. And how do you make sense of it? And when you're computing all of this, you have a wide range of algorithms, right? Like some portions of data mingle with some portions of data, some portions don't. So all of that, algorithmic infrastructure for computation, and how should that computation run, whether it's daily, instantaneous, probably you don't need to do it that much. You need to do it once in a quarter. So all of those judgment calls need to be taken by us basis what are the needs of the user. So some users need real-time information. So there's a lot of times where we actually have to serve real-time information. And we did that in the middle of the pandemic, where information around COVID and Corona was generally less. Like, where are, the one was kind of concentrating that information from a location perspective. So we kind of came in and made a portal where essentially on a real-time basis, we were syncing in with systems with the government, and essentially showing that, hey, these are the containment zones. This building actually has reported cases, and so people could actually get some general information from that. And also, right now, we power the CoWIN portal. Unfortunately, the CoWIN thing crashed, but we were trying our best to make sure that how many of billions of transactions are happening concurrently. We are able to serve it, but we are essentially showing, even right now, you can see the vaccination centers nearby. So if anyone wants to see where they can get vaccinated, you can just go onto CoWIN and you'll see that we've powered the whole service. And we're also offering that for free to every developer, every company, so that people can just, like you have a reach to millions of consumers. All of us in the panel might have collectively reached to 50 million, 100 million consumers. So if we, for free, integrate it, we probably get that information out. And that is also creating a surge in real-time usage. So, storage, compute, and then kind of delivering that service. That's where we've spent like all our time, and I think we've been like happy with our partnership with AWS. We've been able to scale, and yeah, that's kind of how I think how we've been able to take that information and go fully digital first. And yeah, a lot of our tools right now, processes, we're exposing those capabilities out also to developers. So we're seeing a lot of interest in So one thing is that you necessarily don't need so much, as a traditional enterprise. As a tech company, they would, go into APIs directly, but as a conventional enterprise, or, how do you kind of move? You actually don't need to do a lot yourself. That's what our, idea is. We have ready-made, tools so that the work at an
Connect.
enterprise's end is less, so that your business metrics are kind of met. And that's what our approach is. And what essentially companies like us end up doing, and also in India especially, is we write a lot of custom software on top of what we're delivering to every company. Because what happens is you want to serve your business, internal business users, external users, and you need a particular time frame and a particular technology stack. So we end up doing some of that work because it makes it easier for, banks, or I would say telcos, carriers, like all of them, to be able to serve their purposes. So that's like, I think, our resolve in this case.
Fantastic.
So
Great. Thanks, Ankeet. I have a follow-up question, but before I do that, let me just put forth my little learning and from a banking perspective, and I think Jagdish will appreciate. So as we speak today, lots of I've got 45 million customers. They're all talking something about the bank's products and services across various touch points. Whether it is they are calling up my call center, they're sending an email, going to the social media, coming and writing, or trying to do something in my internet banking, mobile banking, going to the branches, and therefore the branches are trying to do something in the core banking. Now, if I have an ability to really scan all of these on the real time basis and really make a meaning out of it and say who is saying what, I may actually figure out what you are saying, which means that my ATM network in Jalandhar is probably a problem, as people are really talking about. Now, that ability to really capture all the information in the right manner and really make a meaning out of it is very, very important. And that's something that we are working on, what you call it as a service data lake, to really make a meaning out of it. And I think more and more learning which are coming from really cool, interesting companies like you are pretty much relevant for traditional companies like ours as well. Now, the follow-up question that I have, Ankit, for you is that, look, many organizations face architectural challenges arising from complex mixes of legacy systems, enterprise systems, platforms, and applications. Now, to achieve communication among these different systems and application, point-to-point integration and implementation of middleware solutions uh, actually are increasing. Now, you are powering various industries, while at your end, you are providing solution for smart city project. That's obviously a completely new digital infra. But you are also powering public sector companies, let's say power utilities, with your GI solution. How do you really ask them to build and integrate the legacy systems with your new age technology solution? Are you saying that you've got these developers, they're building the connects, or they have to do lots of things to be able to use your solution? What do they have
yeah,
to do? Very briefly.
yeah, that's a great question, Ratan. I think my simple answer and our simple approach here is to make sure that we're doing what the market needs. So essentially, the ecosystem is very fragmented. Like, there'll be some enterprises who would easily be able to, like, just kind of do a quick postman check and API integration, and just like they're good to go. And there are some enterprises that have a lot of older systems that they would want to still continue to use because of the users that have been using it and because of the processes that are set up. So our approach is very simple. We kind of build adapters for every system and every company that we kind of work with, depending on how the systems are. So essentially, that's what I mean. So the world has moved to APIs, and as long as we build these APIs and these APIs are able to communicate to the company and to us, I think that's kind of the magic solution here, that
Fantastic.
any system can be integrated into, and that's what our approach is as a company that's serving so many
Great,
thousands of
great,
enterprises.
great, great, great. Jagdish, while your company is new age sort of digital payments bank, but the core banking platforms that you all use are rather old and have a legacy architecture. How do you upgrade and integrate these two worlds?
Yes, that's a very unique challenge, because it's kind of just reflective of how the banking and financial services industry in India has evolved. It was first a very branch centric sort of activity. Banking was a branch-centric thing. So anything that you wanted to do with the bank, you had to go to a branch, and then there is an operator, a teller in the branch who would do the transactions for us, and that's how it used to be. And systems were all geared up for that kind of a model. And then it moved to a sort of partially branch, but you had things like ATMs and other kind of things where you could do a few transactions without really going to the branch, where your time constraints on the branch timings, etc., were taken out, and all of those kinds of things, so that it moved in one direction. You could do a deposit or a withdrawal there and all of that. And then in the digital kind of mode, wherein you could do a lot of transactions digitally. So uh, and now we are in a situation where, notably with the India Stack, right? I mean, that's been a great initiative of the government to put out the India Stack, consisting of Aadhaar and GST and UPI and all of that combined, makes it, completely possible to open a bank account, rather start an engagement or a relationship with a bank, and be with the bank and avail of all the financial services that the a banking institution has got to offer, without possibly having to ever go to a bank or meet any of the bank officials at any given point in time, starting with video KYC down to everything, right? So uh, this journey has evolved to an extraordinary level, and obviously, so while a lot of systems have evolved, there are other systems which are still a bit of legacy. They are still evolving. So what we've done as a strategy is to build our digital infrastructure, and we, of course, being a new age a digital only bank, we don't even have a single branch. So even the option for the customer to walk into a branch does not exist for us. It has to be completely digital, and yet we have to bear in mind, and that's the most important thing that we try to keep in mind all the time. That let's remember that at the end of all this digital stuff is a human being. A customer is still, very fortunately, a human being. So he or she needs exactly the same level of human interaction and care and concern and respect as they would have received when they were talking to other human beings in a bank branch a few years ago. So they can't talk to machines which behave in a very inhuman sort of manner. So hence our digital thrust has always been to try and make it as interactive, as human friendly as much as we can do, so that the customer uh, does not have to experience anything different than what he would have had to do.
Very interesting.
Other-
Very interesting
And,
perspective.
and there's another perspective that, just like, we could earlier have to go to the branch, but we did not have to go to the branch because the bank was there in multiple places. You had ATMs inside shopping malls and you had ATMs everywhere. So the bank literally came where the customer went. Now, the same analogy applies in the digital space also. You can have a digital banking app. Every bank has it now, but it can be on the fourth page of your phone, and you have to scroll 4 pages on your phone to get to that banking app. Now, how often are you likely to go into that app? Unless and until you have a specific need for doing a banking transaction, you probably just go there, very quickly do what you've got to do, and then come out and leave it alone. You probably won't go there. And versus that amount of time that you would spend on WhatsApp or TikTok or Takatak or whatever, or any of the Twitter or any of the social media apps or any of these apps. So just like the branch could go to a shopping mall or a petroleum station or any of the other place, can the banking app also digitally go to the apps where the customer spends more time and be there, rather than asking the customer to scroll 4 pages and go to the fourth page and open the banking app? So that is
Right.
now the kinds of
Understood.
thought process that is what we're kind of working on, and that's what we're trying to do right now.
Interesting. No, I must say that even the ecosystem, the regulators have been quite supportive. I mean, as I see today's announcement from RBI, they have really extended the video KYC for the proprietary firms.
Right.
Aadhaar eKYC is fully compliant KYC now.
Correct.
DigiLocker documents can be used for KYC compliance, and all of these are really really important steps in the right direction. I
Absolutely.
know we have got a few minutes to go. I think I would request the panelists to maybe quickly give few more perspective. Prasad, you know, you must have faced lots of these regulatory challenges around technology, billing, invoicing. more specifically during your work from home scenarios. What is your take on the current environment, and how can you think the private sector companies can partner with the governments to really create an ecosystem which is deriving the values out of this whole work from home in the pandemic and take it to the real world as you move out of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think we have been working closely with the government agencies, and not only during last 12 months, but actually our collaboration with government started about 5, 6 years back. Specifically to logistics industry, when government has notified that we also need to carry KYC for all our shippers and consignees. Uh, just like banks need to have KYC, logistic companies also need to have KYC for each and every shipper. For the benefit of audience and the panelists, let me tell you, not many people know that. And we had to create an ecosystem of a KYC, and that has to be government verified. And this was way back in 2013, 2014, it was introduced. So in last 7, 8 years, there have been a lot of regulatory changes like this which have been introduced by government. KYC was the first one, then the GST came in 2017, e-way bill came in, e-invoicing came in, and one of the biggest change in Indian clearances was electronic clearance, which was being debated for almost 15, 20 years, but it became a reality in 2019. And as a result, now all the import and export clearances are digital. And while all this was happening, pandemic struck. So logistic companies around the world had a big responsibility, because while many companies were not able to operate, and they were not able to operate either because of a government regulation or because of a complexity, we had an extra responsibility that in 220 plus countries where we are present, we had to support the governments and support the industries in terms of shifting of medical equipment, logistics with the medical equipment, which means complexities of 200 plus countries in terms of shipping between various countries, customer clearances. Now the vaccination has come, so the billions of vaccines are getting transported across the world, and we being the logistic leaders in the world, we have a huge responsibility of transforming this, vaccination programs across all the countries. What happens is this vaccines or medical equipment, they have different level of clearances in different countries. The paperwork required, the permissions required for vaccines, the temperature required to transport them across different countries, to make sure that those
Hmm.
vaccinations are preserved and they are safe, so that they are equally effective. This all cannot be achieved without collaborating and working with governments. And we have seen that the government have been quite collaborative. There's a lot of input they have taken from industry pioneers like us, and I'm really glad to say that we have been able to work and transform a lot of the regulatory systems working closely with government. So I think compared to past, where I think there was a bit
Right.
of slowness, our experiences in that last 5, 6 years, governments have been extremely receptive of the digital change. Our industry body has been working closely with government on all the matters of GST,
Thanks, Prasad. I
invoice.
think
Yeah,
quite relevant. Quick few words on. You see, digital is not just about creation of infra or the technical capability. It is also about mindset, right? Now, how to really create a mindset of really adoption of digital infrastructure or digitization wave among the employees and the customers? A couple of quick input on that. How do you do that?
yeah. So our digital approach has been, we say digitalization or digital transformation is a conscious application of technology by people. So people play an extremely important role. And for that, it is important that people understand that digital transformation is anything which can improve a customer experience or an employee experience. So that is has to be kept by people in mind. Otherwise, there are a lot of technologies, and you should not be adopting technologies for the same of it. See, we ran a lot of digital awareness programs within our organization. We created e-learning courses on digitalization for our employees, so that they become aware of what's coming, technologies like AI, machine learning, RPAs, and how they can adopt these technologies to improve either an employee experience or a customer experience. So the senior management, it had to be a top-down approach. Senior management enabled this environment digitally and through a lot of what we call as campfires, in which we brief our employees, we take their ideas in terms of converting their ideas into digital transformation initiatives. And for last 2 years, we have been doing this. As a result, we have seen a lot of momentum in terms of people upgrading themselves, adopting the technologies for the betterment of customers and employees. And there has been a whole positive way in the organization about digitalization. And that came really handy in last 12 months.
Oh, wonderful, fantastic. Uh, you see, technical infra for digital transformation cannot be completed without discussing the cloud. No, we hear about the various benefits of cloud, the flexibility, cost efficiency, ease of usage, backup, recovery, and of course, anytime, anywhere access, etc., etc. Interestingly, these same positives of cloud too pose threats around security, loss of control, lack of features, regulatory implication, etc. So, Akilur, from your perspective, I'm sure you need to run lots of application, as you mentioned, conduct huge amount of monitoring, run analytics for various purposes, including predictive maintenance. How do you use cloud? I mean, is how do you decide and how do you use cloud?
Okay, so I would take two aspects here. One is, of course, the applications, the sensors, the controllers, the software they have to run in real time, collect the data in real time, and also run a lot of algorithms in real time. Because that's a very, very critical process. The second part is when we put the sensor, we take the data to the cloud where in days where the data to come up with some improvements in the system. So, for example, the asset performance management. So we use in
I think the audio is disturbing.
okay.
Yeah,
Is
okay.
it okay
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Sir. Go ahead quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, what we across the geography in different organization, and so here the beauty of cloud, I would say, that is that some sensors, connect it, hook it up with the application, then the cloud services are available. So with smaller
Right.
steps,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
digitalize and you get the benefit. And also people who do this to convince the management to get this, because they also see the benefit in days and months, not have to wait for 1 year to install the system, install the server, the data repository, and develop the application. So it's in days or weeks you can get going. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Akilur. Thank you for your perspective. Jagdish, I've got a question from the audience, and we just have like 5 more minutes to go. Quickly wrap it up with a couple of questions to you. You see, somebody is asking that. Look, the whole range of facilities like digital KYC, UPI, and huge number of transactions that are happening in the digital space. Uh, these are, of course, ease of transaction, but how do they affect the security of the systems? Are these really reliable from a customer point of view? I mean, what kind of things that the customers should do, the companies are doing to maintain the security? And I have some perspective which I'll share, but first, over to you.
Sure. Great question, and the answer is yes. The government and the industry bodies and all the participants involved, be it RBI, NPCI, the whole host of participants involved, UDI, in the process of video KYC, Aadhaar, electronic KYC, UPI transactions, have defined the highest standards of stringent security standards that need to be incorporated. And these are, down to excruciating levels of details, down to the API standards, down to device binding, ensuring that you have to register your specific device, which is not just the phone number but also the physical device, the IMEI and the SIM also, to do the UPI transaction. So tomorrow, if I buy a new phone and I just take the same SIM card and put it on the new phone, my UPI will stop working until I deregister and register my new phone onto on the UPI. So that kind of stringent security standards of device binding, etc., have been mandated by regulators themselves. Plus, in addition, there is a lot of security audits. There is extremely high stringent standards of every API being checked, at the lowest levels. So while scalability, reliability is there, security stands right paramount at the very top of it, with all the standards being adhered to. There are limits, there are fraud checks, all of that stuff is in place, and that is very much the fundamental heart of this entire digital movement. So that's
Yeah.
Some substance of what I wanted to say.
Right. No, absolutely, Jagdish. I think I must say that the entire ecosystem is really working hard to make sure that these are safe. And like for me, with 20 million cards and 44 million accounts, customers are doing millions of transactions every single day. I mean, every single moment. We do have lots of this pattern mapping to find out, is these transactions beyond the pattern of a normal transaction for our particular customer, and we are able to identify the potential threats of frauds. And in fact, there is a very thin line between a fraudulent transactions or a genuine transaction. Now, ability to really identify, tap those, and then really go back and reach out. I just want to make a quick comment to all the audience who are listening. Please remember that money doesn't grow in trees. If somebody is luring you, saying that you will click this link and you get lots of money, please for sure know that this is fake. I mean, it doesn't work like that. Are you still there on the call? Yeah. Okay. I just got one last point, sort of couple of points to ask. Ankit, we've been really hearing AI in a big way these days. What role do you see AI play in the larger ecosystem for digital as a world, and as well as in the location and mapping world in years to come?
Thanks, Ratan. That's obviously a burgeoning topic, and I think it's on all our minds to utilize this technology, essentially to drive a lot of our efficiencies in the business itself. So I'll first talk from a location perspective. What's happening? Essentially, there are multiple types and forms of AI, right? Like essentially, what's happening is, one is there is a visual form. So there are a lot of images coming in from phones, from satellites, mostly from our perspective. I think you could say it's mostly phones. Like I'm sure your customers are also generating a lot of images. So that is very valuable. And that data can be utilized to simplify, let's say, verification processes, to just kind of extract data from that, as you keep understanding and modeling out the specific things that you want to extract from those images. So I think that saves a lot of time, and that saves a lot of human effort. So that's where AI at the edge and AI even at the server is extremely critical. At the edge, meaning at the phone itself or at the endpoint that someone's actually utilizing it, and even at the server side where you're trying to analyze through billions of images that, hey, like you're saying, you're doing some pattern matching, and if there's images that are augmented with that, you'd get great ground truth. And that's actually very powerful. And we've already started building a lot of images. So there's like you have Street View in the US. We've already started launching our own Indian service of imagery, where you can actually just point to an area and you just like think that you're already there. So
Right.
images, and generally for an enterprise, the amount of data that's being populated into your systems, just because of how we're kind of forced to move to digital, that data and that history of the data is very critical, because that's where the AI and the machine learning kind of gets useful to make a decision for the future. And that's just generally all across all of our businesses, whether it's imagery data. Data can be in so many different forms, scalar, vector, as some of our engineers who are there, but imagery, non-imagery forms of data. But all of that data, as we recognize patterns, and we keep on building on those patterns, that used into our business decisions as APIs or as simple, monthly, daily, however those processes are, can drastically change, our businesses.
Fantastic.
So,
Right.
in simple summary, we have a lot of data, we have a lot of history in all our companies. We just got to utilize that and feed that into the future. That's it.
Wonderful. Great. I think, gentlemen, it was really wonderful talking to you. I think we have come to the end. It was a very fascinating discussion. I would have really liked to go on. And anyways, we would have your contact details shared with the audience. They could ask any questions. And I would love to reach out to you informally and remain connected, because I could get to learn a lot of things from your insight. And I guess many more to learn from you. Thank you once again, Ankeet, Prasad, Jagdish, Akilur. And once again, thank you to IMAI, Garima and team for really having us here. Once again, great to have this discussion.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kesh.
Thank you,
Thank you
Ratan.
to all the
Thanks to the
panelists.
panel.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
The
Thank you
audience
very much.
for making the session so responsive and posting so many questions. If there's anything else that you would like to ask, because I've seen so many questions on the platform, then the panelists will be available offline. We can take it up. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks,